What is a hero? A mythological figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability? An illustrious warrior? No. It's a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, one who shows great courage. Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast, where we dive deep into what a hero is and what makes them that hero. I'm your host, Ken Frownfelter, and I'm going to be introducing you to some of the world's most likely and unlikely heroes. You may have never heard of them before, and they most likely have never met you. But they all have one thing in common. They are ready to do whatever it takes to help make you better, even if it means sacrificing everything for you. Let's get into it.
This is episode 18 of the What's a Hero podcast with me, Ken Frownfelter. Let me ask you a question real quick. What is adversity? At least what is it to you? How often do you face said adversity? I guess the better question would be, how do you face it? And then what is your follow-up? So like when you get this adversity and it's right here in front of you, how you deal with it, how your response is, and then what's your follow-up? What are the after effects? What are the things you do afterwards when it's all said and done? How do you recover from it, or how do you use it to better yourself? See, a lot of times in life we're faced with adversity or hardships or problems or difficulties or whatever you want to call them. The issue is not the adversity itself. It's the person going through the adversity and how you look at it and what you choose to do about it. So let's say a friend promises you something and they don't follow through with it for whatever reason. They have their own reasons. Life is what it is, right? Are you no longer friends? Perhaps you are passed over for a job or a promotion. Does it mean you stop working as hard as you did before? Okay, how about this? What if that friend who didn't follow through is the one who got the promotion over you? Do you work to undermine them or make them look bad? I guess there are some people that would do that, right? How about if you owe more on your taxes than you expected and you don't know how you will ever cover your bills? Or a major repair surfaces at your home and you have yet to pay the last repair you had to make. Or you make plans and spend a lot of money preparing for, say, Disneyland or whatever, only to be upended by some global pandemic. I know some people that did that. They spent a ton of money getting ready to take their family to spring break last year, and coronavirus hit. Their whole plans got changed, right? What if you just stop believing people because you deal with liars all the time? How's that work, right? Here's another one. What if you get so frustrated that you bring all that home at the end of the day? All those things that have frustrated you, that have gotten to you, that have gotten you to that point where your thermometer, your internal thermometer is just all red at this point, you know? What if you bring that home at the end of the day? Does it help to yell at your spouse or your children? To treat them like the liars or the bill collectors you are so frustrated with in the first place? Are they responsible? Are they the ones? Your little 8-year-old daughter comes running up to you, "Hey, Daddy, look what I did." Or, "Hey, Mommy, look what I did. I made you macaroni picture," right? Or, I colored you this picture. It's you at work. And you look at it and it's just scribbles. Is it fair to take out the frustrations and the anger and the adversity that you deal with on a day-to-day basis? Is it fair to take it out on the people who love you the most? Is it worth it to break things, yell, and demean those that love you the most? Or sometimes worse yet, sit in silence away from those that love you and support you the most? I mean, totally, when you get home, you're done with your work, you're done with your day, you're done with all that junk that you dealt with, and you just want to go spend some time alone. When those people that support you, love you, encourage you, want the best for you the most, you want to take a break from them. So in the big picture, who are you punishing the most? Them? The ones that love you, encourage you, want the best for you? Or are you punishing the liars, the bill collectors, those people who caused all that adversity in the first place? Is that who you're punishing? You're not punishing those guys, are you? No, you're not. Or are you punishing yourself? Take a look at that. Take a look at that. Are you punishing other people because of all the other crap that comes your way? Or are you punishing yourself by either biting people's heads off, making people walk on eggshells around you? Or are you punishing yourself, giving yourself that ulcer, putting stress on you, causing you to be upset and angry? Honestly, unquestionably, life sucks sometimes. Hands down. Everybody can agree to that. It can be painful, hard, unfair, mean, nasty, cruel, and selfish. And that's just Monday, right? Much to a lot of people's skewed perception, life is unfair. It is very adverse. And honestly, this has been told to us from day one. The day we were born. Something happens and that's not fair. And somebody says, who said life was fair? Right? We've been told that for as long as we can remember. Nobody said life is fair. Life is not fair. They say one of the most dangerous things we go through in life is birth. Even with the wonders in technology and modern medicine, birth is still extremely dangerous and painful. Sure, we can mitigate the pain and suffering with meds and stuff like that, but that has its limits and must be timed just right. You got to deliver that shot or whatever at the exact moment. If it's too far along, it's too late. We're going to have to go through a natural, I'm doing air quotes right now, natural birth. So life is unfair from the get-go, from the beginning, from the time we come into this world. It's painful. It suffers. We begin to look at it and say, oh, is this even worth it? But you ask any mother who has put their child on their chest after they've been born, is it worth it? We look at everything that we have and we say, is it worth it? Is that adversity, those negative things that we deal with, worth the life that I'm living? Is the life I'm living, is it worth all that adversity? We grow and are always being warned to be careful. Take it easy. Don't hurt yourself. Don't touch that. And as cops, show me your hands. Then we get older and eventually we die. Surprise, yes, we all will die someday. Sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it's peacefully in our sleep. Sometimes it's unknown, sad. Better now. It's better now. Better that way. Or even good. For some people it is good. But what makes it that way? Sometimes it hurts those closest to us more than it hurts the ones who die. Whatever your view on it is, it's adverse, right? But we look at those things that as we go through life and we say, hey, we're going to, it's, and I'll kind of talk about what I was saying there. Sometimes it's sad when somebody dies. People are crying, people are mourning, all that stuff. Or like I said, better now. I've heard people say that. Well, they're in a better place. It's better now. It's better this way. Is it? Is it? Who's it better for? And that's the thing we have to look at. Everything is subjective because as we look at it, as we go through things, something might be better for one person and it might be sad for another. But it is what it is to that person. Sometimes it is good. But as I've said before, life is that dash in between two dates. What is that little thing in there? Is that good? Is that bad? Is that the time that you spent? Was it worth it? The joy or encouragement or peace or sacrifice you gave to other people, was it worth it? Did you do everything you needed to do? Or did the adversity get you every time? Did it say, hey, I got you, and now the way you deal with it ruins everybody else's day, causes everybody else that loves you, encourages you, supports you, wants the best for you, to walk on eggshells around you. So let me ask you again, how do you deal with adversity? How do you deal with it? Let me let you in on a little secret. Adversity does not exist without you. That's right. It's not there because it's subjective, like I said. But that adversity, it's not there if you don't let it be there. It is not what it is. It's not just, oh, there's a horrible thing through that door and there's a good thing through that door. It's not like, what was that old TV show, that Monty Hall? You know, let's make a deal. You can take door number 1, door number 2, blah, 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 right? Behind door number 2 is adversity. Behind door number 1 is not adversity. No, that's not what it is. Because in order for adversity to be there, you have to be involved. So what might be your adversity may not be my adversity, and vice versa. But it does not exist without you. And to go one step further, it does not exist without you letting it exist in your life. It might be difficult. It might be hard to deal with. It might be one of those things that you just don't think about or don't want to think about, but it's there. But when you decide that you are going to overcome this adversity, as we call them, some people call them speed bumps. It's a speed bump. Some people call them hurdles. Some people call them whatever. You get to go do it. It's yours to do. And you can do it with a smile on your face, and you put your rucksack on and you charge forward with it. Or you can go ahead and fall down on the ground and start crying and say, why me? Or you can try to get people to help you out and say, how do I get through this? And I need some help getting through this because this is going to be difficult. But your mindset is still to go forward. It's not to stop and say, okay, well, I guess I can't go any further forward. No, life is catching up to you. It's closing in. If you don't deal with this, it's going to get you. The adversity may not, but life will eventually catch up to you and get you. So like I said, adversity doesn't exist without you. It's just a set of circumstances. Most of the time, it has nothing to do with you. It just is. Now, there are bad people out there who might be after you. Sure, that's possible. But life is not like the movies. The majority of people don't have arch enemies. They don't have a Moriarty out to get them. The majority of the time, it's just the opposite. People may very well not even be thinking about you at all and are just trying to move themselves forward. Because a lot of times we think about adversity and like, or well, this person did this to me. Are they really so much out to get you? Or are they so much out to help themselves? We have this thing, because I think a lot of times the media portrays it or pushes it in our heads or whatever the case is, but we have this thing where we say, if they have something, I have nothing. Well, life is not a zero-sum game. Life doesn't work that way. If that person has $1 million, that doesn't mean I have no money whatsoever. I can work towards, can I work, if that person over there, across the street, whatever, has $1 million, can I work to get to that point where eventually one day I could have $1 million? Is it possible? Absolutely, it's possible. But just because they have something doesn't mean I don't. They get in shape. They go work out. They have a happy life. They've got a loving wife. They've got beautiful children, do good in school. They have nice cars. They have a nice house. Those are nice things. And a lot of times people go after that, but they focus on that being the only thing. And it's not. However, you go talk to this person and they are a charismatic person that just, they're supporting and they're encouraging and they're willing to help you out. They see you struggling, you're digging a ditch in your front yard, they come over with a shovel. Hey, let me help you out, blah, 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 blah. All the stuff that this guy has does not mean you can't have that too, and you can't get to that point. Now, I'm not talking about money, and I'm not talking about things like that. That's not my intention here. My intention is to show you or explain to you that life is not a zero-sum game. Just because somebody has something doesn't mean you have nothing. And just because you're going through adversity doesn't mean it's great for somebody else. And just because it's great for you doesn't mean it's adverse for somebody else. A lot of times, people don't even consider us. They're not even considering you. So when they hear about you're going through a rough time or something like that, they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And then you hear people say, hey, if there's anything I can do, let me know. That's their way of saying, I honestly care and I'd like to help out. I have no idea what to do. I heard somebody one time say, don't even say that. You just go forward and you just go do something for them. What if that has nothing to do with what they're going through? I disagree with that. I honestly think you need to develop the relationship with that person so you can go in and get involved with their life and have something to do with them. Get involved with them. Know what it is that they need or see the need. Open your eyes, get your perception bigger, and say, oh my gosh, okay, that person, I see them go to the gas station every day after work and put $2 in. Maybe I can fill up their tank. Or I see that they're always late to work because, they have to go drop their kids off. Well, wait a minute. My wife doesn't have to go to work for another hour after I do. We have to be, and my coworker and I have to be at work at the same time. What if my wife, I could talk to her about being willing to go see if she can take his kids to school? Something along those lines. So that idea that when somebody says, hey, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know. Well, let them know. If you're that person they say that to, let them know. You know what? Okay, I'm willing to do it. And a lot of times we're just not willing to put ourselves out there and say, yeah, I do want, I could use XYZ, or I could use this, or I could use that. You say it. Because if that person's sincere, if that person is caring, like they are, because I have a lot of people in my life, when something adverse happens to me, they don't say those things. They don't put that stuff out there. Now I know what you're saying. There's people I've talked to that I've been going through an adverse time, and then all of a sudden they say, hey, let me know if there's anything I can do. And you say, well, there is something. I can't do it right now. Yes, you're right. There are people like that are out there. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. However, for the most part, if people say that, take them up on their offer. Well, I do have this thing. Would you be willing to help me out here? Now, I'm not saying I need you to pay my bills. That's what, if you want to help me out, give me $700 so I can pay, whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. You also need to have a mindset of humility when somebody says, if there's anything I can do, let me know. I could use some help mowing my lawn. Oh, okay, cool. I could use some help getting some weeds pulled in front of my house. Okay, cool. That's great. I've got a 12-year-old son. It's spring break. He's ready to do some work. Awesome. I can absolutely use that. But if somebody says that, take them up on their offer. But we're too afraid to actually go forward and deal with the relationships that we are in. But that's what life is about. And I've mentioned it before. Our life is about relationships. What we're doing on this planet is for other people. That's how you gain the gravity. I guess that might not be the right word. That's how you gain that thing that is ultimately why we're here. Other people. And I've talked about it since day one on this podcast. Serving other people is what's important. You have to serve other people. You have to get them on your list, and they have to be priorities for us because they'll be the ones who are going to be getting us out of our adversity. You need to have a positive attitude. And when that fails, you need to remember your training and the hardships you faced that prepared you for this moment. The times you pushed yourself harder than you thought you could, and then you kept going. The pain you suffered and what you learned about your worst adversary, yourself. Did you know that? Did you know that you are your worst adversary? You are the one that causes the majority of your adversity because it's in your own, a lot of times it's in your own brain to think, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Is it terrible? Step back, detach for a moment, take a look at it. Get up from the table, walk around the room for a minute, and then turn around and face it again and take a look. Is it as bad as you think it is? Okay, if it is, great. You've been training for this moment. You've been preparing yourself for this moment. If it's not, get in there and fix it, change it. But don't let yourself tell you it's bad. Don't let your brain tell you, hey man, you're a failure. You've been doing terrible your whole life, and it's just another time for you to be terrible again. You are your own adversary. But like I said, It has a lot to do with the training, the preparation you've done up until this point. Wait a minute. You're telling me you haven't been training for this moment? You haven't prepared yourself for this moment? You haven't pushed yourself or been pushed beyond what you thought was possible? You know, you probably don't even consider yourself a hero, do you? Do you know how many guests I've had on this show wondering why I asked them to be on the show in the first place? And then all my future guests, why they have asked, why when I ask them, they're like, me? What are we going to talk about? These people, they spend their lives just doing what their heart has told them to do because it was right. Sure, they get to do some fun stuff along the way, but have had to do some grueling things along the way too. Every single one of them, every single one of the guests, Jeff and George and Susie and Ron and Tim, and you go down the line, every guest I've had so far, Steve, Mark, everybody, every single one of them, Archie, you name it, Jessica and Tatiana, everybody's gone through some hard time, something that has just kind of knocked them back and made them think, this is too difficult to do. And you know what's even more? Every single one of them is going to have more adversity come in their life. A new one, a new enemy to fight, a new obstacle to climb over, crawl under, jump through, bust through. Every single one of them has had it, maybe having it now, and we'll have to go through it again. And then all my future guests that are coming on the show, every single person, and the person who is listening to this podcast right now with their ears has had adversity, is going through it right now, or will have some in the future. How positive is that? Well, I told you, life sucks, but you do not have to go through it by yourself. You do not have to go through all this stuff by yourself. There are people who are willing to go through all that stuff because they've trained and they put their heart into things to be by your side, to make sure you can get out on the other side alive, well, and succeeding. So I go back to my question. You're telling me you haven't been training for this moment. You haven't prepared yourself. You haven't been pushed or pushed yourself beyond what you thought was possible. Now, you might be a receptionist or a plumber or a back office worker or a construction worker or whatever, but that doesn't mean you have nothing adverse to train for. What happens when you see a child about to get hit by a car? What happens when you see someone fall out of a raft when they're on the river and are drowning? What happens when a major incident is happening at a school or a mall or a grocery store or a concert and people are hurt or maybe even dying? What do you do? What can you do? What do you think about at that time? Or that dreaded 3 o'clock in the morning phone call that tells you that your mom or your dad has passed away or your family member is hurt and needs you. Are you prepared at that time? Or are you so wallowing in your self-pity and your own adversity that you don't have anything left to give anybody else who needs you? See, we can't focus on our own pain and our own adversity and our own victimhood all the time. There are people that need you. There are people that need us. So you either deal with it, you overcome it, and you put it behind you, or you push it off to the side for the time being so you can help other people. See, we're here on this planet. We're here for other people. That's why we're here. That's what we're here for. Are you going to be mentally strong enough to go through what you need to and to be there for others? Or do you leave it to someone else to take care of? Is someone else even going to be there to take care of it? I've said it before, and I'll say it again. And I got this. I've heard it, but this is the motto of the Travis Manion Foundation. And it says, if not me, then who? If not you, then who's going to do it? If you're not there to answer that call from your family member at 3 a.m, who's going to be? Nobody? Because they're calling you for a reason. If you're not there when somebody falls out of the raft, when they're rafting down the river, and you're not capable of saving their life or helping them or getting them back into their raft, who's going to be? Is somebody else going to do it? What if you are that somebody else? Your adversity may be tough and it may be hard to go through, but you can't let it overcome everything to where now it hurts others. See, I tell my karate students all the time, as they're kicking or punching or moving their still developing little selves, you need to control it or it will control you. Matter of fact, last night I said that again, And one of the students says, "Why do I always hear that? Why does he always say that?" And he said it to another kid. Because obviously it needs to be said. Either you control it or it controls you. Now, what am I talking about? It. Whatever it is you're doing. Whatever it is you're doing. Control it or it controls you. If you're walking forward and all of a sudden your legs just start walking you backwards, does that happen? No, because you're controlling your legs to walk forward. You control it or it controls you. And why do I need to say it again? Why do the students in the class say, "Why is he saying that?" Because it obviously needs to be said. It's obviously not something that you are grasping because you continue to let it control you. So, I'll say it again. Control it or it controls you. You deal with that adversity or that adversity will deal with you. You deal with that hardship or that hardship will deal with you. You go work out. You go get in shape. You go train. You go prepare. Or you take those away. That adversity comes against you and it will work you out. It will train you. It will prepare you. And I don't want to be prepared by adversity. I want to prepare adversity for me. Whatever you're doing, as you are doing it, you can only control what you are doing. But you can have an impact on those around you with what you are willing and capable of doing. Good or bad, you will have an impact on other people. And by preparing yourself, by working out, eating well, getting good sleep, reading positive growth type material, writing down your goals, putting others first, serving others, not putting yourself down, no negative self-talk, and a myriad of other items you already know you should be doing to prepare yourself to be able to face those challenges head on. Prepare yourself. By doing all these things you already know, you're just missing this one piece, actually going and doing it. Having the discipline to get up early and to work out, or to read 10 pages a day, let's say, or drink a gallon of water a day, or to go on a walk with your wife or your husband or your kids or your dogs, or to actually follow through with what you said you're going to do to somebody that actually needs you. Serve others. Put away your selfish thoughts and your selfishness and say, "Hey, you know what? I've got to do this. I don't want to. I am not in the mood today or tomorrow or tonight or whatever. But you know what? I've got to do it. It's got to be done." So you go forward and you do it. And if you sit back and say, "You know what? Because of this adversity, I just can't do it. I don't have enough. I quit," or "I'm done." If you quit, who's going to be there for somebody else? If you don't put your oxygen mask on first, who's going to be able to put on somebody else's oxygen mask should they need it? Yeah, it's a little quip off of the whole airplane thing that you get when you go on an airplane and they tell you, "Put yours on before you put somebody else's on." Make sure you're good to go. You have to prepare yourself. And you can do that with others. You come along people or have people come along you that, like I said before, that are like-minded. And you go forward and you say, "I'm going to go do what I need to do. I'm going to go forward and I'm going to help others. I'm going to go forward. I'm going to bust through this adversity of mine. And I'm going to make sure that I can do what I need to do. That I can make sure that other people are okay. That I can make sure that I'm going to be a hero, even though it might sound goofy in my mind or when it passes my lips, that I say that I'm a hero. I'm not a hero. And I hear heroes say this all the time. I'm not a hero. But when you serve other people and you get somebody the things that they need so they can bust through their adversity, you become that person's hero. So once again, it is subjective. Your heroism is subjective to the person in which you are serving. So with that, today's episode is going to be a little bit different. I'll be doing a little Q&A with questions that have come to me through various sources. Some are about me, some are about what I think, and some are what people are asking for advice. Now, am I the wisest person I know? No way. Now, some of you that know me that are listening are like, "He's not the wisest person I know." Exactly. However, I do know some stuff. I'm not completely dumb. So, these questions were asked to me, and I will do my best to answer them. Somebody thought enough of me to say, "Hey, what do you think?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. Here's what I think or what I might do, or here's what's worked, or I've seen it work for other people." But they were asked to me, and I want to give them the respect by answering them as best I can. Hopefully you can get some benefit out of them too, and maybe we'll learn something together along the way. So, my first question, it says, Ken, I'm interested in becoming a cop. How do I go about doing that? What sort of things should I work on or take in college? How do I prepare? Well, I just spent the first opening portion of this podcast talking about preparation, talking about training, talking about getting ready, right? Obviously, this young guy or girl, I'm not sure, they want to become a police officer. Now, this is this first big kind of thing, because right now, it's not extremely in vogue to want to become a police officer. When I started, and several years before that, you'd go into testing sites for police officer testing, and it would be, honestly, wall-to-wall people, standing room only. And you may have remembered a couple podcasts ago when I was talking with Mark Hildebrand, and he was talking about when he tested, it was that way. You may have been in a gymnasium at a high school or something like that, and there is just people everywhere, standing room only, and people are taking tests. It almost would remind you of, remember that scene in Men in Black, when everybody's trying to write on their leg or trying to figure out writing up on the wall, things like that. And then Will Smith drags that table over, right? Well, similar to that. There's no place to sit, nothing's comfortable, and the room is just filled. 200, 250 people testing for maybe 3 spots, or whatever the case may be. Now you fast forward to 2021, and we look at it and we say, we're struggling to get 25 people in there because, one, the media tells everybody cops are bad, or nobody wants their kid to go in there because it's dangerous, or they're going to get sued, or whatever the case may be. But I'll tell you, when those people that are saying, yes, I know all that stuff, I'm familiar with it, I watched the news, I've seen the news, I still want to do this, or I know that it's dangerous, I know people can get hurt, I know people want to kill the police, whatever the case is, I still want to do it. This is the guy or the girl who is asking, if not me, then who? Because they understand the importance of what police work is. They understand what it means to have guardians 24/7, 365, driving past your house, making sure that some, for lack of a better term, dirtbag isn't crawling through your window, stealing your stuff, trying to hurt you, trying to hurt your family. So I look at that and I say, you know what? This person, they want to do it. And you lay out all that stuff and you say, hey, this is what I want to do. Okay, I get that. You understand all these things that could happen. I absolutely do. Awesome. Okay, let's start looking at what you need to prepare. So you've got college. Yeah, college is great. Get that degree. Eventually, and there's a lot of talk right now saying that coming from government places, that if you want to be a police officer, you better have a 4-year degree. You got to have a bachelor's degree. Now, I know that it's a way of thinning the herd, whatever the case, whatever you might want to call it. But it's beneficial, absolutely. You take the people who have been doing it 20 years and they've got 5 years left or something, and they don't have their bachelor's degree. They're now having to look at, okay, great, it's been 20 years since I went back to school. I guess I have to go back to school. And they're willing to do it. Why? Instead of just quitting. Because they know this is their calling. This is what they're supposed to do. Yes, college is great. Get a degree. And some of the good topics to get a degree in. Criminal justice, sure. I mean, that's what it is, right? Psychology is fantastic. Business management. You learn how to manage people. You learn how to work with people. Because what is police work? Building relationships with people. It's a servant leader is what a police officer is, to be honest with you. Various things in that realm, get a degree. There's some people that have a degree in, I don't know, underwater basket weaving. I don't know if that's really a thing. But there are some people I've heard, and I can't remember the exact names of their degrees, but they have degrees that have nothing to do with law enforcement, with criminal justice, with business management, with psychology, anything like that. How to deal with people. But they've got a bachelor's degree. So a lot of times departments will give an incentive for having that college degree. So it's fantastic. Get that degree. Go to college. Sure. Or should I go in the military? Personally, me, I would say go in the military because you can do the military and college. It's hard to do college and the military. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, what is your priority? Going to college? Oh, yeah, and I have a job in the military. Or being in the military that demands a lot out of you, send you anywhere in the world at any time, and going to college. You can do both. But I find the military to be a win-win on this one. Because as you go through the military, you learn how to deal with people. You learn, you have a job. You're not just floating. And you get held accountable for who you are, what you're doing. Now, I'm not saying college doesn't do that, but they don't do it like the military. You go around and you talk disrespectful to people, or you're rude, or you're unprofessional. You get held accountable for that. You don't get held accountable for that in college. You might get a bad grade. You might get dropped from a class. Can you make that up? Sure. That might cost more money, sure. But with the military, you can also learn skills. You get job skills, free training sometimes. So I guess in my view, I like the military. You're also going to learn tactics. You're going to learn how to be tactical, which is something that some police officers need to know. You need to know and have that work ethic, which is something that as a military personnel, you will be able to absorb and develop. Now, there is a third option. You can do neither. There are plenty of guys who have not been in the military and didn't go to college. And they became police officers, and they became very, very good police officers because that's all they wanted to do. That was what their life ambition was to do. I want to be a cop when I grow up. Okay, well, they spend all their whole childhood growing up playing cops and robbers, and they go into this point where they say, I'm going to be a cop. Okay, cool. Go be a cop. And so they learn everything they need to learn about it. They get around it. They get immersed in it, and they do really, really well. Sure, it can happen. But do the other ones help? You bet. They absolutely do help. But the big question would be, why? Why do you want to be a cop? Because a lot of times when you go through the testing process, you're going to go to that point where there's going to be people asking you questions. And during the testing process, you have what's called an oral board. Oral board, you have people up on a dais, 3 to 5 people, and you are kind of sitting in front of all of them. You have the spotlight on you, and they ask you the questions. Blah, 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 blah. One of the big questions is, why do you want to do this? And this is something I asked Tatiana and Jessica, why, and they said, I don't remember that question being asked when I interviewed. Okay, well, maybe they don't ask dispatchers, but they ask cops this. Every time I did an oral board, either was on one or was in the spotlight, the question got asked, why? Now, there's some people that have this thing called the canned answer. And that canned answer is, well, I want to help people. Oh, that's great. That's great. That's great. You want to help people. Why do you want to help people? Well, because I listened to this one podcast about being a hero, and they just always want to help people, so I want to help people too. Yeah, I get that, but why do you want to help people? I don't know. Let me tell you a story. There's an officer that I know, and before he ever became a police officer, he did a ride-along with me. He was trying to figure it out. He was actually he worked in like warehouses, and he worked as a soccer coach for a college, and his whole thing was, I think I'm getting to that point in my life. I want to become a police officer because I'm tired of doing nothing. And so I asked him this question: hey, why do you want to be a police officer? And he's like, well, because I want to do something more, blah blah blah. And so I broke it down to him. I said, you got to know intrinsically why you want to be a police officer. You can't just say because I want to help people. You can't just say because I want to drive fast and carry a gun. You can't just say these basic things because that makes you not understand what the job entails. I said, that's good. You want to help people. But then you got to figure out why you want to help people, because there's always a why, and that why can go pretty deep. But asking that why is important. You have to get into it, and you have to be able to answer that intrinsically. And what do I mean by intrinsically? What happens when that why, that I want to help people, becomes a I don't care about people? And if you think, well, you're police officers, you're supposed to care about people. You're right. You're absolutely right. But what happens, as I said earlier, when you're tired of people lying to you all the time? When you're tired of people just being dirtbags? When you're tired of people, adults, being children? When you're tired of them coming against you for trying to help them? Do you still want to help people? What happens when your why is I want to help people and you don't want to help people anymore? What's your why now? This gentleman that was doing the ride-along, he said, okay, that's good to know. And so he eventually got the job, got hired on, did great. He does great, top-notch cop. But he pulled me aside one day and he said to me, he goes, you remember a couple years ago when I did that ride-along with you? Yeah, I remember it. He goes, today is that day. I said, what are you talking about? He said, today is that day that I don't want to help people, that I don't care. I just want to go home to my family. But I got to be here for 3 more hours on overtime because I've taken X amount of reports. I've got evidence to log. I've got all these things I've got to go do. And it's after my shift. And I'm here. And I'm missing my daughter. And I'm missing my wife. But had you not brought that up to me years ago, I wouldn't even be thinking about it right now. And I wouldn't remember why I'm doing this. So thank you. And I said, well, that's fantastic. I had no idea. Because what I was thinking when I told him this is I said, you have to think about your why. And I was thinking of, okay, you got to get through this question because when you get up on the oral board and they ask you, why do you want to do this? And you say, well, I want to help people. They might buy it, but the ones that have a little bit of seniority are going to look and say, well, why do you want to help people? Because they've been there. They've been to that staying over after your shift to write reports and log evidence. So why do you want to help people? My story was I want to help people. When I was a kid, I didn't know what I wanted to do, to be honest with you. But, and I'll tell you this little story. It's kind of a fun story. Going down the freeway, I was in the backseat of my mom's car, and we lived in Southern California. Now, this is in the late 70s, early 80s. And there was a show on TV called Chips. Now, it was about the California Highway Patrol. You might know Chips. It's Ponch and John on their motorcycles going down the freeway. There's always a crash, always something, right? Well, that was a big thing when I was a kid. So I'm in the backseat of my mom's Honda Civic hatchback, and I'm sitting in there, and I don't even remember if there was car seats at the time. I don't remember what the story was, because I just remember sitting in the back seat. And my mom saying, oh, this is what I remember. Now, I could be wrong, but this is the way I remember it. I'm sitting back there, and my mom says, oh, hey, here comes Chips. And she looked out the rearview mirror, and there were 2 motorcycle cops coming up on the freeway kind of behind us. So my brother and I, we get up and we look behind us, and we're like, oh, hey, yeah, check it out, Chips. Because we just thought every motorcycle cop, every motorcycle CHP officer was Ponch and John. As a kid, that's what you think. So my mom exits the freeway. She just happened to be getting off the freeway, and she comes to the stop sign that's there on the off-ramp. Well, these 2 motorcycle cops come up beside us, and my brother and I are looking out the window. Hey, Chips! Ah! Sure enough, it was Larry Wilcox and Eric Estrada on their motorcycles next to us. At least this is what I remember. The 2 guys that I saw on TV every week were now sitting next to me on their motorcycles. They look over, they do their little wave thing, and they take off the opposite direction in which we were turning. Did that blow my mind as a kid? You bet it did. You bet it blew my mind that I'm thinking, holy cow, I just saw Chips. Having that in my head, that I'm thinking, those guys are real. Those guys are what is real. It's possible that it's not just on TV. It's not this behind this glass thing that I look at night, but it's right next to me. They're real. Not too long after that, my mom's car broke down on the freeway, and there was I would think that it was a local area police officer that came by, and he helped us out, made sure we were able to get help, and we got on the road. I remember that just a little bit, but I was looking at all his gear more so than anything, more focused on the actual police officer than the situation in which we were in. And so I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, holy cow, once again, the police help. So I grow up my whole life thinking, what do I want to do? And I tell myself, there's 3 things I want to do. One of those 3 things was being a police officer. And that's what I get to do every single day. I get to go in and I get to put the uniform on and remember my why, that it's real, that they help people. That's what police officers do. So as I'm talking to my fellow officer and he's thinking about, why do I do this? I'm thinking about chips. But then I've gotten to that point too. Why am I doing this? Because it's real. Because somebody needs me. Because I can help somebody and their little kids get home safely. So you got to remember your why. To the kid that's interested in becoming a cop, remember your why. What is your why? And it can't just be, I want to help people, because there's going to come a time when you don't want to help people. There's the testing process and the testing preparation. Those things you've got to go through. You've got to have a good resume. You've got to have a good application process. Your application has to be correctly filled out. You've got to have your background packet filled out correctly as well. Get those things good. Don't lie on them. Just be honest. Aside from major incidents, major criminal behavior, you're most likely going to be looked at. Then it comes to you to be able to perform. Now, perform, I'm talking about the written test. You got to fill in the bubbles like old Scantron stuff. You've got to go through an oral board like I've been talking about. You have a physical agility test. You may have a report writer test. You may have, it all depends department to department, but you have to prepare for those things. You can't just walk in off the street. Well, I haven't been doing anything, and now all of a sudden I want to take a test. It's not like checking a box because you're unemployment. Have you looked for work in the last 6 weeks? I did. I took a test for the police. It took me 4 hours to do. Okay, 4 hours of work search. No. It doesn't work that way. You have to prepare for it because this is a career that you're going into. This is a profession that you're going into, and this is something that some people, myself included, see as a very high standard to attain and to hold and to keep yourself prepared for, and continuously preparing yourself and training yourself and being more for yourself. There's a couple different tests preparation books you can do for the testing. The one I liked was Norm Hall's, and you can get that on Amazon. Just type in Norman Hall's police officer preparation book. It has practice exams. It has memory stuff, and this one of the things that's in the actual written test is you got memory and you got mapping and you might have math. You might have things that you haven't done, especially if you're late 20s and you finished college a long time ago, or your early 30s. If you haven't been going to school and you've been just working in the factory or whatever, like, you know what, I need to get out of here. I want to go do my profession that I want to do my whole life. Cool, go do it, but prepare for it, because it's not going to be easy to just go in and remember all that stuff that you learned 10 years ago, or that you gave up because you got your degree 10 years ago, or that you didn't get your degree because you went in the military and you've been deployed for the last however long. It's not always that easy. So prepare yourself. Get your brain back to comfortable. Get the cobwebs knocked out. Prepare yourself. And the big one is stay out of trouble. Don't do drugs. Don't even do weed, man. Everybody thinks, not everybody. There's a lot of people that think that if I just, that's okay. I smoked weed just last week before I came in. It relaxes me. You know what relaxes you? Sleep. Sleep relaxes you. Oh, but I don't sleep well. Then go work out. Get yourself tired. Smoking weed's not going to help you. It's not going to prepare you, and it's not going to do a thing for you. You got to keep an eye on your credit, your social media, schoolyard fights that you got into, police contact of any kind. Basically, be better than the average person. Plain and simple. Oh, but wait a minute. Cops are all racist, and they're all mean, and they're all out to get everybody, and that's just it. They're not. They have to go through so many different things. They have so many eyes looking at them and so many fingers pointing at them. They have to be better than what everybody expects them to be. And they do, and they are. So moving on from that question. Next question is, Ken, how do you reconcile off-duty with on-duty? Are you a cop 24/7? Sure, I am a cop on and off duty. But there are a lot of times in which I don't want to be a cop. I have my family with me, and I'm inside a grocery store. Do I want to be a cop at that point? or do I want to keep my family safe? I'm at Disneyland, walking through Disneyland with my family. Do I want to be a cop at that time? Some things are just kind of ingrained, and that's where your mind goes, and you're always looking over your shoulder and watching people and stuff like that. However, do I want to be that way with my family? If something breaks out, something happens? No, I want to be with my family. I want to spend time with them. I want to make sure they're safe. If you live in a smaller area and you go to the grocery store with your family, is there a chance you run into people that you've arrested, or they may recognize you because you arrested their family member, or you were there but another officer arrested their family member, whatever the case is? I knew a guy who wrote a ticket to a guy that lived in the same town he lived in, that he worked in. A couple weeks later, this officer goes on vacation to Europe. While he's there, guess who he bumped into? That's right, the guy he wrote a ticket to. He was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm just trying to..." What are the chances, So that idea that I'm a cop 24/7. Yes, I am, but no, I'm not. There's a time that I like to, if I'm going to the beach, or I'm going to Tahiti, or I'm going to something like that, I want to just lay on the beach and drink a margarita. So yes, we have to shut it off. Because if I'm driving down the road with my kiddos in the back seat, and I stop at a stoplight, and the person that I dealt with a couple weeks ago, who knows I'm a cop, he pulls up next to me and he's upset with me for whatever he feels I slighted him because he committed a crime. Can I deal with him, or can I help keep my kids safe? What do I do? So there's some things I don't want to be a cop, and I will go different directions, and I will take different routes home, or I will keep an eye on who's cooking at the restaurant in which I go to. Things like that. Sometimes you can't help it, and you have to be ready for that day that the fight may come to your doorstep. You just don't know. Are people going to find out where you live? Possibly. Do your neighbors who know you're a cop, are they all cool? Not always. I had a neighbor that stood at the end of my driveway threatening me. Just down there, "Come on, pig! Come on, cop! Let's go!" And, he doesn't remember much because he was in a meth-fueled rage at the time, but I don't live in a bad neighborhood. But that stuff is pervasive, and it goes everywhere. And some people, they don't care. So is it possible that may come to my doorstep or another officer's doorstep one day? You bet. In that case, am I a cop, or am I protecting my family? Both? Neither? You never know. Next question. Ken, do cops just drive around looking for people to stop and frisk, or looking for people to pull over? And do they have quotas? And why can't they just be like firefighters and just respond when they get called out? Well, easy answer to the first question. Do they just look for people to stop and frisk? No. Easy answer to question number 2. Looking for people to pull over? No. And yes. And easy answer to question number 3. Do they have quotas? No. And as far as the firefighter question is concerned, if you just waited for a police officer to just come to your house, they just sit at home, they watch TV, they play Xbox, they shine the truck, they unroll their hoses and then roll them back up, they do some laundry, they sweep the floors, they do chores until, there's a call, gotta go. And they go. If you waited for a police officer to do that, how fast would they get there? Would you need them there sooner? Because look at it like this. As a police officer, we drive around. We're going around from neighborhood to neighborhood. Isn't it nice to know that there's a police officer driving through your neighborhood while you're sleeping, looking for people possibly hopping fences into backyards, or somebody walking down the street trying door handles on cars? Or do you want to just have us wait for the call to come in? What if everybody on that street's sleeping? Nobody sees the person trying door handles to get inside their car, steal all their stuff from inside their car. Or the calls that firefighters get called out to are fires, are lift assists. And we learned this from Frank, right? That there's all these things that firefighters get called out for. Police get called out for a lot more. They get called out for the scam, your elderly neighbor who just got scammed for $10,000 because she didn't realize that the person that called her was not her grandchild. We could handle that by the phone, or we can go over to that house and we can hold that lady's hand because she now feels stupid. She feels violated when in fact her whole life she's not been any of those things. We can't just wait for the phone call for that. Now, sure, we have to wait for the phone call because there's that point where we have to we don't know what's happened until they tell us. However, is it an emergency that I respond to that? No. But when a firefighter gets called out, it's an emergency. Somebody fell on the floor. They could be on the floor for however long. The house is on fire. Could be on fire takes no time for it to burn up, or it could take a little bit longer for it to burn up. But that lady who's been scammed out of $10,000, she needs a police officer. She needs somebody there to hold her hand. You want to know some of the other calls the police officer get called for? Pipes bust. Pipes bust in my apartment complex. Okay, I'm not a plumber. Well, somebody needs to fix this. You're right. Let me see what I can do. And that's what a police officer does. They go out of their way. If they have some knowledge of it, see if they can go over there and get the water turned off. See if they can, especially if it's a weekend when city streets are closed or county streets are closed or public works is closed and they don't respond to calls. Who's responding? The police. But we're also going down the street. We're driving down the street and we see somebody running out of a convenience store with a case of beer under their hand. Can I assume that they just stole that case of beer? Especially if the attendant comes out. He just stole that. Perfect. Well, there's a cop here. There's that old saying. There's never a cop around when you need one. Sometimes there are, but I guarantee you there's never a firefighter around when you need one until you call them. A cop, they're always going to be around, and it's going to take a lot less time for them to react and get there and make sure the scene's safe so everybody else can get there and do what they need to do. Do we just look around, look for people? No. But if we see somebody, sure enough, we might have a reason to go chit-chat with them. But we'd have to have, obviously, it's a thing where you have to have a reason to go do it. You can't just do it off of looks. You got to have a reasonable suspicion to go talk to people. Do we just look for people to pull over? Sometimes. If I'm sitting there, I'm driving down the road, and I see someone on their cell phone, I'm looking for somebody. But I'm not looking for that all the time. And a lot of times when you make a traffic stop, that traffic stop yields more to it. Warrants, drunk drivers, various other reasons people get pulled over and you start realizing there's some validity in what you're doing. And then the ultimate question, do you guys have quotas? Nope, no quotas. And as one old retired police officer once told me, he's retired now, at the time obviously not, but he goes, why would they put a limit on how many tickets I could write? And I know he was just kidding. The idea, however, is no, there's no limit. As in, you have to have this many, or you can only write this many. They say, hey, you have to have 20 a day. All right, 20 a day is difficult to get. It's possible, but it's difficult to get. But if you take the thought process of this retired officer, but what he said, and said, why would they give me a limit? Yeah, well, you have to have 20 a day. I can't write more than 20. It's difficult to do. And it's got to be one of those things where we have a lot of complaints for a certain area, maybe school zone or something like that, where we get people and we have to come in and focus enforcement in a certain area. But there's no quota. There's nothing saying you have to write X amount of tickets. A lot of times you might just go in there and make stops and say, hey, it's a warning. Please slow down. Thank you. Have a good day. So moving on. Next question. Ken, I want to be a detective and work big cases. How do I get hired to be a detective? Oh, and by the way, I don't want to have to work patrol and nights and weekends and holidays. So there's that too. Well, I want to tell you, starting out, being a detective is a specialty assignment for most departments. You will almost never see someone hired specifically for that position without first having been on patrol. And if they do, they have been there before or been a detective before, somewhere else. But patrol is in their background at some point. You get hired as a patrol officer. I'm going to be a cop. Well, you're going to be a cop, a guy in uniform. That's what you're going to be. Majority of the time, people don't get hired to go become detectives. They don't hand you a trench coat and a fedora right out the gate and said, go be a detective. It doesn't work that way. You have to learn the job. You have to learn the laws. You have to learn how to talk to people, how to deal with people. You have to go through all these different things before you can just be a detective. And it's pretty presumptuous for you to say, I just want to be detective. I don't want to have to put my time in. I just want to be detective. I don't want to have to work nights and holidays and weekends. That's for chumps. Everybody works night holidays and weekends. And if you're a detective, there's a good chance you'll have to work nights, holidays, and weekends. Not as your everyday schedule, but that's when you're getting called in. So it's after your regular schedule. You come in, you do your scheduled maybe 8 to 5 or whatever, you go home. 3 o'clock in the morning, you get called out because of a major incident. And you're there until 10 o'clock the next night. A detective isn't just some easy cush gig because you just work on you want something like that, you go become a private detective. You can go wear your Hawaiian shirt or whatever and work in Hawaii, or you can go wear your trench coat and fedora and work at some seedy upstairs office downtown New York and have a private eye on your door. But to be a real detective, you have to learn the people, you have to learn the streets, you have to learn that being a cop really means. And that's not just finding the bad guy and book 'em Dano and all this stuff that you see on TV. A lot of times it's not TV, because you're going to learn so much just doing the regular job. You're going to learn so much that you're going to realize, maybe I don't want that. Maybe I don't want to be just a detective. I like doing this thing, or I like doing that thing. And a lot of times detectives, they don't want them doing all these other specialty things because they have so much work coming at them as it is. You're going to miss the chance of doing traffic or SWAT or negotiations, things like that. Now, it's possible you could do some of those specialty things, but for the most part, you're going to have so many things going. You need to learn your place. You need to learn what's yours, and you have to learn what is required and what's needed before you get to do what's wanted. So the specialty assignments, like I said, other things. There's traffic, there's criminal investigations, drug enforcement, gang prevention, SWAT team and negotiations, like I said. All those little things, they actually have a place that you can learn so much and realize, man, I really like doing this more than I like doing that. And so you can focus your time, your efforts, your career development towards that, your collateral duties, whether you want to be a defensive tactics instructor or a defensive driving instructor, or you want to be a drug recognition expert, anything like that. You'll start learning all these collateral duties, and you're going to have so many different things being a police officer. And if you're worth your salt, and if you're any good, you're going to get into that point where you realize I'm doing all these things and I'm actually okay at them. And people are coming to you and asking you, hey, what do you think about this? How should I go about doing this? What do you think? And you become that person they're asking these questions to. And it's not always a detective. There's community action leagues and committees that you can be on, that you can start working with those people in the community that start looking to you as their liaison. Man, I have a question. I don't know. Is this legal? Or can the police do anything about this? Well, you have someone right there. Hey, is this possible? Yeah, actually, blah, 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 blah. That's what the police are there for. They're there to answer questions and help educate the public. Like I said before, servant leaders. That's what a police officer is. They lead by serving. They serve by leading. And then any special events that happen, whether you have parades because of whatever in your town or your county or your state, or you have dignitaries coming into town, or you have whatever others, the county fair, they need people for that. And if you're a detective, you go and you can get pulled in from there and say, hey, you need to work that. Okay, got to go put on a uniform, because everybody needs to know how to wear a uniform and be a uniform wearing cop. So, next question. As a new officer, how do I deal with the stress that comes from nights, court, supervisors micromanaging me, raising a family, and everything else? I try to do a good job, but it seems like there's always someone getting on me for doing something wrong. What's the best course of action, and does it get easier? Well, yes. Yes, it does. It does get easier at some point. But the stuff that you're talking about, where you try to do a good job and it seems like someone's always getting on you for doing something wrong. Well, maybe you're doing something wrong. Do you expect people not to hold you accountable? Do you expect people not to expect the best out of you? You get into this profession and this career saying, I want to help people and I want to do the best. And you are thinking, you start narrowing your vision, saying, okay, I've got to get this report done so I can go to bed because I've been working night shift and I'm tired and blah, blah, blah. Okay, but what happens? Let's take a wider view, step back and take a big picture look and say, how is this going to help this person? How is this going to help that person? Is this report you're writing, Is it everything that needs to be done so that everybody is going to be taken care of? Is it a domestic violence report and you pulled the guy out? Let's say it's a guy and a girl, but I'll be very honest with you. Sometimes the guy is the main aggressor and the female is the victim. Sometimes the female is the main aggressor and the guy is the victim. And it's about 50-50. Anyways, you write this report, you take dude to jail, and the dude goes to jail, and you send the report to the district attorney to have them go over charges to see if it's worth them charging this person and keeping them out of the house. Well, you don't put the right stuff in there because you're tired, you just want to get home. You just put the bare minimum in there, and it goes through, and the DA says, I'm not going to charge this. I don't see a crime here. And so the guy goes back home to continue victimizing the girl. Is that fair to her because you didn't do your job completely? No, it's not. You have to do your job completely. You have to show that you know what you're doing and that you care about people. And even if you are past the caring about people, you still do your job right. Because what if that is your family member that they're victimized, or their victimizing spouse or whatever is coming back into their house to victimize them some more because the cop didn't do his job correctly? It's important. It's important. You do the job that you need to do. So yes, if there's people micromanaging you, they're getting on you, it's because they see potential in you and they want to see you do better. Like I said earlier, get with people who are like-minded. And if you see people that are better and like, oh man, they're just nitpicky. No, they think they have a bar and they refuse to go below that bar. And they're trying to pull you up to that bar as well. And what you're facing is adversity. How do you deal with that adversity? But, well, okay, the rest of the question, how do I deal with stress that comes from nights or court or supervisors, micromanaging, raising family, and everything else? Well, it's called stress for a reason because that's what it is, stress. There's a lot that comes your way. Now, there's ways to deal with stress. There's ways to mitigate stress. You have to have something else. You have to take a chance of having an outlet for that stress. You keep it all bottled up, and you will not be able to function because there's so many other things going on in your head, such as nights and court and supervisors micromanaging and raising a family and bills and all those adversities that come your way. How do you get rid of that? So that's my question. This is going to actually take us full circle because how do you deal with that stuff? How do you deal with those stresses? You have to get rid of them. You find a hobby to deal with, something that you like to do. Remember George a couple episodes ago? What did he like to do? Work in his wood shop? He's been a cop a long time. And he just wanted to work in his wood shop on his time off. He gets that stress out that way. Sanding and routing and everything else. Gets that out. Get the stress out. Talked to Jeff several episodes ago. What did he like to do? You have to go hunting. Go out there. Just be out in the woods. Let it all go. Deal with none of it. But you got to find a hobby. Something that gets you to actually want to go out and do things and takes away the stress. The other thing that you can do is work out. Go work out. Go get yourself stronger. Because as you're straining and you're pushing and you're trying to do things really hard, you're going to be able to work through aggressions and you're going to be able to work through stress and you're going to get it out there. That they're going to have places to go because you're going to be taking it out on weights, or you're going to take it out on running, or you're going to take it out on martial arts, or you're going to take it out somewhere else, and you're going to get rid of it. Now, if you can take your hobbies and mix it with working out, oh, that's even better. So much better. You like to do martial arts? You get a chance to beat up a bag. Sure. Or you get to spar with somebody, or you do jiu-jitsu and you get to roll with somebody. All those sorts of things, you're working out and you're getting your stress out, and your hobby is included. So it's important that you work out, that a police officer makes sure that he's training and he's taking care of himself and he's getting to that point. Not just a police officer, though. Everybody. The firefighter, he has to work out. That EMT, he has to work out. The nurse, the doctor, the teacher, the veteran, those guys on the front line, they have to work out. Why? Because stress. Serving other people is stressful, hands down. It is stressful. It's difficult, but it's worth it. And I talked about it before. It's grueling. The things they go through are difficult to do, but it's worth it because what you're doing is you're serving other people and you're helping other people. Make sure that they're okay. Make sure that they're able to live the life they want to live. that you're developing the relationship with them so you can see them succeed, so they can see you succeed. And this whole thing where everybody's at odds and trying to divide everybody by media and government junk, that doesn't help anybody. If you have an issue, instead of assuming that one person believes one thing or thinks one thing, you need to go communicate with them. Just as I've said before on this podcast, you need to communicate with them and develop that relationship. Because if you don't, who's going to? Because right now, some things are bad. Law enforcement is getting a bad rap for whatever reason. You name it. George Floyd, mostly peaceful riots, Capitol riots, laws making what was once illegal legal, laws making what was once legal illegal, defunding, unsupportive government representatives, whatever, you name it. Police officers are working hard to make the world, state, county, city, community they live in better. I believe this with my whole heart. There's not a single city, county, state, community that there's not police officers that want to see it better and want to live peacefully in it. They're not doing it by trying to mistreat others, but to uphold the laws the citizens voted to put in place. The rules get changed or repealed often, and a police officer attempts to uphold those laws the best he can. He has to adjust the way he thinks, the way he feels based off of the laws changing. And every state has a different law. And then there's cities and there's counties that have specific, rules and city ordinances or county ordinances or whatever specific to their area that say that the police have to uphold these or enforce these or whatever. And it changes all the time. But they do it because they want to do it, and they want to see their communities peaceful. And they want to see their communities a good place to be. Because the more you can have a peaceful and productive community, the more people will want to come there. And the more people want to come there, the more commerce will come there. The more commerce comes there, the more it will grow. And the more it grows, the better it will be for everybody. There'll be more things for people to do. There won't be people just off to the side, just bored out of their mind, and because they're bored, they're causing destruction. There has to be some want to see things succeed and be better. And the majority of police officers I know, that's what they do. They want to see things get better and succeed. I've never known a first responder, a police officer, a firefighter, an EMT, worth his or her salt, go to work not wanting to do the best job they know how to do. Do they always know how? No, but that's why there is continued training. That's why there's mentors. That's why there's partners. That's why there's supervisors breathing down their neck, micromanaging them. That's why they're there. Those who care, looking out for one another. That's why they're doing it, not because they don't like you, but because they care. Not just to look out for one another, but to check up on their own brothers and sisters as they prepare for the day by day, knowing them inside and outside of work. That's why we have to develop relationships. You see somebody struggling, you come up beside them. You see them going through adversity, you come up beside them. That's the idea. You have to go through this adversity. You have to go through this time in which you are talking with your brothers and your sisters, knowing that they're okay. If they're not, you help them get there. And you carry the load for a little bit if you have to. But none that I know, goes to work wanting to ruin somebody's life. I've never met somebody that's like that. Are they out there? Probably. But I've never met them, and I don't know if I ever will. So I've gone on long enough with adversity and how to deal with it. And I would like to let you know that if you want to get a hold of the What's a Hero podcast, you can get a hold of us on Instagram, and that's at What's a Hero. You can get a hold of us on Twitter. You can get a hold of me on LinkedIn. And obviously we're on that ever famous Facebook. And that, if you just type in at What's a Hero, boom, it'll pop up. You can also go to the What's a Hero podcast.buzzsprout.com. And that's my website. That's our website. You can get on there and you can see all previous episodes of the show. You can also see it has links to every podcast platform in which we're on, which is Apple Podcast, Google Podcast. Let me see. I'm going to pop it up right here as we're as I'm on it. So the What's a Hero podcast, and you can find every podcast we've had, every episode so far, and it has links to every podcast platform that we're on, and that's Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, Overcast, Podcast Addict, Castro, Castbox, Podchaser, Pocket Cast, Deezer, Listen Notes, Player FM, Podcast Index, Podfriend, all those guys. There's links to every single one of them on the webpage, and you can just go there and find the What's a Hero podcast and say, hey, cool, subscribe to it and listen to it from there. Downloading it is awesome because that lets me know how many people are listening. And if you go to whatever podcast platform you listen to the show on, you can leave a review. You leave a review, it lets other people know, oh, hey, this show is pretty good. If people start looking for something similar to this show, they don't realize that we're out there. Your review could actually help them come in and be like, oh, hey, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to listen to. So if you would, that'd be awesome. Leave a review. Let us know how we're doing. And we will keep doing it, obviously. So we have a couple guests that are coming in. Cool folks. I'm really excited and looking forward to some of these folks that are coming in. And if you got guests that you say, hey, you know what, Ken, you should interview this person, or you should talk to this person, I'm up for it, man. Let's do it. Obviously ask them, but see if they're up for it and have them reach out to me. I'd be happy to get them on the show, and we can get them on a future episode and hear their story, because there's nothing as important as hearing somebody else's story or their testimony and how it can encourage other people, and how it can bring other people, give them motivation and inspiration to do good things in life and actually go be a hero themselves. You can email me on any one of those, anyone that has an email, and I'll reply. And you can send, if you got questions too, send those questions. If you think it'd be great for the show, let me know. And like I said, we just need more motivation for each other, and we need inspiration to do what's right. And if there's anything I can do, let me know. I'm happy to help. With that, I have been Ken, and this has been the What's a Hero podcast. We are clear.